Hiya, this is Ergogenic Aids by Aaron Sparrowhawk. So first of all, what are ergogenic aids? Ergogenic aids, when we talk about ergogenic aids, one thing needs to be considered: is it actually increasing your performance? If it is, then it can be classed as an ergogenic aid. However, not all of these aids are legal and accepted in sport, and many are actually banned. Many chemical and pharmaceutical substances, such as steroids, are banned and are now tested by anti-doping committees. So when using ergogenic aids as a performer, you need to understand that whilst it might really increase your performance and help you in whatever sport you're actually doing, the substance could actually be banned, and that could actually cause a strip in titles, medals, and a prime example of that is Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong got caught out, and all of his titles were stripped, all of his Tour de France's were stripped, and he lost out big time simply because he got caught doping and using ergogenic aids that weren't legal. So when talking about ergogenic aids, there are 5 sort of categories that you can put an ergogenic aid into, one of the 5. First is mechanical. Mechanical aids are essentially physical things and physical materials that will help you increase your performance. So we're talking things like technology, clothing, equipment that will enhance your performance. And we'll go into this in further detail as examples and things like that and how they actually help. But that's just a broad definition of a mechanical ergonomic aid. Obviously next is physiological. And these are things that bring on change to the body, whether it's by a chemical reaction, a type of exercise, a type of training method, even things like common daily activities like walking down the stairs every day rather than taking the lift. That can be classed as a physiological change simply because it's changing your body. If it is, obviously, if it's not changing your body and it's not bringing on any change, then it's something else and it isn't physiological. Try to really remember that because of the pharmaceutical and physiological sometimes get mixed up, really remember that physiological is something that brings on change to the body. Pharmaceutical, that is simply something more to do with drugs, medicines, treatment, things like that. While these drugs do give changes, you must look at the sole purpose and decide whether it's a pharmaceutical drug before it causes change. If it's a drug before it causes change, then it's pharmaceutical. If it isn't a drug and it causes on change, then it's physiological. Nutritional is more to do with what you consume, what you're drinking and taking in fluids and energy. Nutrition has been proven to be a significant impact on performance, hence why so many performers are using nutritional ergogenic aids, simply because it's been proven to work and it's been proven to be important in sport. And finally, psychological aids are more to do with mentality during performance and how your mind works and functions. Many use psychological aids without actually knowing it. For example, rituals to relax. Some people like to go for a jog before doing their sport. That's actually a mentality thing and can be classed as a psychological ergogenic aid. So first of all, mechanical. For my example, I'm doing compression garments. Compression garments actually work by suffocating and constricting your muscles. And that actually decreases pressure in the wherever it is. So I've done an example of a shooting sleeve, a basketball shooting sleeve. And that will obviously constrict the arm and bicep. And that will decrease the amount of fluid there as well. But the main point they're actually trying to do is they're actually trying to increase the flow of blood to the muscles, which obviously then will lead to an increase of energy, increase of oxygen intake in the working muscles and things like that. And obviously that's why in basketball shooting sleeves is a big thing, because obviously you're using your arm constantly to shoot the basketball, so that's the main working muscle that's important for basketball. A lot of people use this in basketball, however other sports use it as well. Example of that's heptathletes. The only problem is with compression garments is there's no actual real evidence to suggest it actually works. Testing's been very sort of scathy and unsure, and it hasn't really been proven to actually do anything or give any benefits. But if worn after exercise, however, it has been proven to increase recovery time. For example, Allen Iverson got injured in 2004. And it was meant to be a 10-game span when he was injured, but using a compression sleeve was only for 2. And that was actually proven, and it worked for him. Another example is probably people like who are doing Ironman events. When they're using actually in the events and marathons and whatnot, it might not actually help them as much, but during recovery, and actually putting them on after it's finished, it might actually help them with their recovery time, because Ironman's such a grueling event. And obviously, Prices obviously vary, but it's usually from 10 to 20, and it can go as high as £40 if you want a whole body suit, but pretty much it's usually £20 roughly. So, pharmaceutical. Anabolic steroids are a type of hormone compound that increases in the seminal testosterone, which in turn brings on a growth in muscle. These steroids give hormones and hormonal cells a boost in effect that brings on a rapid increase of muscles. The drug is usually commonly found in participants who need either a fast glycolytic fibers for strong, powerful contractions, such as 100-meter sprinters, or people who use strength, such as weightlifters. The drug can be taken through either injection, fluid, or tablet containing the substance. While anabolic steroids give huge advantages like increased body growth and decreased recovery time of injuries and give placebo effects such as confidence, they can be really lethal. Obviously, they've heard of terms such as roid rage and things like that. Spikes of aggression can occur, and these drugs can also damage the nervous system, increase cardiovascular diseases, testicular shrinkage, and actually, depending on your age of the drug taker, it can actually accelerate puberty, causing permanent growth damage to the body. This drug can only be collected legally through a prescription. However, due to the likelihood of the prescribed being so low, rarely anybody prescribes steroids nowadays, the likelihood is when you're using them, they will be illegal in sport. Anti-doping committees do test for them, and they are actually banned in almost every sport. And in 1975, the steroids were banned under the Anti-Doping Committee Agency authority, and tests still do catch dopers today in sports. So next, psychological aids. Music is a very good example of a psychological aid, or ergogenic aid in psychology. Music allows people to really focus and enter what some people call an intrinsic state of mind. While it's uncommon to see people actually listening to music while they're in a game or actually in their sport, many do it before the game, entering the building, and even during warm-ups and things like that. Many people have to use music as it doesn't help them focus as much, but actually helps them relax and calms them down. It helps them feel like they're more in control of what they're actually doing, which is actually really good for them. However, when you're using music, you have to be very cautious with it, simply because using too much can cause a huge spike in arousal, and as a result, that can actually lead to a decrease in performance. So be cautious with it and be varied. And obviously, prices really depend on simply just the quantity of the music. If you only have one song, it's only going to cost you about 12p. If you buy an album, it's going to cost a lot more. But usually it doesn't tend to be that costly. So now then, physiological. EPO. EPO is a substance produced in the kidneys that leads to a formation of red blood cells in the bone marrow. The kidney cells that make EPO realise that the blood is low on oxygen and realises that the body is struggling because it doesn't have enough oxygen, which in turn releases the EPO, which increases red blood cell production. It's used through use of injection mainly, when people use this in a pulmonary vein, or through the use of a less effective pill, which isn't as effective but can still be used. Many aerobic performers will use EPO as it allows aerobic performers to have a higher amount of oxygen intake and increase in their red blood cells, which gives them an advantage, as it sends more O2 into the working muscles. And another advantage of taking it is O2 opacity does go up, because obviously you have more red blood cells, and also fatigue goes down. You're not going to fatigue as quickly if you have more oxygen going around the body. However, taking these drugs does come at disadvantages. It does have major disadvantages. Heart attacks and strokes chances increases when you take this drug, and blood tends to thicken when taking these drugs. So obviously that's something to consider when actually doing it. EPO is banned and is actually tested in the doping agency, and doping agencies will test for EPO on major performers. Lance Armstrong was a big story a while back. That was the first drug he got caught using, and he admitted to using EPO before he admitted to using anything else, and that was sort of a big jump where agencies wouldn't just test it every now and then. It was a constant thing, and it is still a constant thing now. Finally, in the year 2000, doping agency actually made the tests and made tests for EPO in performers' system, and as a result of this, it actually led to a lot of cyclists dropping out of the Sydney Games. However, the drug was actually originally banned in 1997. So finally, nutritional. Protein is used to rebuild and repair muscles that have been broken down during exercise. Protein is very good actually after an event, I think, more so than before, simply because it actually helps regain and rebuild any muscle that's actually been ruined, fatigued, broken, or anything like that during the event. Almost every protein powder and things like that is actually ingested, either through a shake or food, but it usually tends to be a shake and things like that. And it actually reaches the muscles a lot quicker through that way, rather than actually eating it, like getting it through your meats. Protein powder is pure and it's ingested and it's gone straight away. So obviously the advantage is it does definitely help with recovery time and things like that. However, problem is it is quite costly and it is used quite a lot, and it's commonly, if you don't have a set timetable and you don't use it right, it's ineffective. So at times, while it is very, very helpful for growth and repair, it has to be used in the correct way, otherwise it's ineffective. Obviously there is that, and also alongside that, a high protein diet then, it could lead to weight gain, because protein is actually then sent straight to fat if it's not used and is almost too full. If the body has too much protein, it's then stored as fat. So it can actually lead to a high fat percentage, and also can lead to high cholesterol as well. Finally, caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant to the body. When ingested, an hour later, many endurance exercises become a lot easier, therefore increasing performance in endurance athletes. Caffeine can stimulate the brain, help break down fat stored to convert the energy, and increase pulse rate, and also increase blood pressure, allowing the performer to enter a better threshold for their exercise. Caffeine mobilizes energy stores, as said before, but it encourages the body to use fat as a fuel. While caffeine has these perks, excessive use of caffeine can cause problems such as increased chance of stroke, heart problems, and actually research has proven that it can cause an increase in cancer. While caffeine is legal, there are some restrictions to it. It isn't completely banned, but obviously doping agencies will look at how much caffeine is in your body sort of 2-3 days before, and if they realise you've been extremely excessively using caffeine, that will cause problems and could actually lead to a disqualification or faults or things like that.